City Current. Produced by Dakota Media Access. In-depth discussion with Bismarck and Mandan city officials. Watch on Government Access Channel 602 HD or tune in to Radio Access 102.5 FM. Always local, always current.
Welcome to a Mandan edition of City Current. We're here in the studios at Dakota Media Access. I'm Mary Van Sickle, the Executive Director here, with Jim Newbar, City Administrator for the City of Mandan.
Good morning, Mary. How are you?
Oh, pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Looking out the window, there's little flurries going on, but...
Wind and flurries, but like we said, there is no complaining. There's
No.
folks in the country that have it certainly
No.
a lot worse than we do. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Fortunate winter, and knock on wood that we continue.
It's kind of crazy to wake up and look at all the temperatures on your phone of your
Yes.
relatives and friends across the country and go, we're warmer than Texas. We're warmer than Florida. That doesn't happen in January very often.
I think I did that with one of my nieces out in San Diego, and it happened to be her birthday, and it was like, "How's it going, Jimmy?" And I said, "Well, it was 22 below this morning, and it's now whatever it was, 35 degrees above zero. A little bit of a temperature swing here, which I don't think you have those swings in the San Diego area."
I wonder if any place really has those kinds of swings in temperature that we can realize here.
Makes life interesting, doesn't
40 and 50 degrees in a matter of 12 or 24 hours. So anyway, our job here at City Current is to talk about the Mandan City Commission meeting last night. It was kind of a really short agenda, but there are plenty of things to talk about, and obviously the commissioners had some good discussions last night.
Sometimes that happens when what looks like on paper is, okay, we'll be out here in 15 minutes. We spent roughly an hour last night. We met early because normal situation on a Monday holiday is the school board comes in at 7 o'clock. We start at 5 o'clock. We were, ran our usual hour last night.
Got it going on. Yeah.
Couple really big ticket items.
Well, and I think
agenda.
the other thing to mention too is that up until your budget process is pretty finalized, you are now scheduling 2 commission meetings every month, one being a special working session.
Right. Our normal meetings are the first and third Tuesday of the month. We have started now meeting on the second and fourth Tuesdays as kind of a budget, not necessarily a budget working session, but we're having departments come in and present what we're looking at for the next 5 to 10 years. So we always understand that we have 3 relatively new commissioners within the last 6 months. They've been very engaged and very curious in how things work and what we have planned out in the horizon. So we're doing some of those updates with them, and also for our own purposes. And so, like I said, I think last Tuesday on January 14th, we had our planner, Andrew Strami, came in and gave, here's kind of what the population outlooks are looking like for the next 5-10 years. Here's what new developments we have that we know about, and here's what we think may be coming on board. So all of that affects how we respond from an engineering side, from a public works side. Next Tuesday on, January 28th, we will have emergency services with police and fire come in and say, here's what we're looking at for the next 5-10 years. And after that, we've got, I think, all the rest of us assessing, building inspection, city attorney, the other folks at play in this world. And then we'll do some final, we've got all kind of here's the list of needs the departments are looking at. How do we think we're going to fund these things, and on what kind of priorities are we putting them on?
Sounds like a valuable process to go through, and we should mention too that these meetings are announced. The public is invited. You are available. People can sit in on these. I don't think you're taking necessarily any action at these meetings. Right. It's just
special
information
meetings are
gathering.
limited to the topics that are on the agenda, and there can be no motions made one way or another at those meetings. So it's a kind of an information gathering, a time for commissioners to have some really good dialogues with all of our department heads, and to spend a little time on getting to know what do we have in the works for the next 5-10 years.
Yeah, it certainly can be valuable, I'm sure. And I should mention, even though we, Dakota Media Access, we are now providing live coverage of those meetings. They're held in your veterans room at City Hall. Recording providing those recorded meetings to us, and we put those on your page in our archives. So
Right, we will have
people can watch them.
We are Zooming those meetings, so they are recorded in not just a handheld tape recorder.
Right.
And so if folks want to watch them, they would be available for that. Again, it's a matter of saying, okay, what are we looking at on the horizon? These are what our department heads are looking at for the next 5-10 years, because we know things change. They are living working documents, so they will see fluctuations, but it kind of sets the stage and puts the knowledge base of our new commissioners and even our older commissioners on the same page.
Well, I would think even for the department heads, there's some value, and they all work together anyway,
Correct.
but to sit down and talk about the needs coming up gives each department to understand what the others are dealing with and where the priorities are going to lie right away.
The key cogs in this are our finance folks, Greg and his crew, and also from an HR standpoint, what are you looking for staffing?
Yeah.
All that, we're doing that in the planning stages right now. All of it could be kind of goobered up when we talk about legislative changes that may be on the horizon, things like that. But we still feel this is a very valuable exercise to move through. Needed.
And we can talk about that at the end,
We will.
because that is how the meeting ended last night.
Yep.
You gave a legislative update last night. So let's just move on. There was a big announcement last night. This has to do with the Downtown Street Improvement District. We do have a map we can pop up that this is addressing this particular area in Mandan. And Andrew, Jarek came
Wiggness, our
forward.
city engineer, presented this. This is, we've talked about this, I think, many times before, but really it's on the western side of our downtown area from 6th Avenue over a few blocks to the east. We, many years ago, applied for a grant which would be covering kind of from Collins Avenue to 6th Avenue, all of the avenues in between and up to 2nd Street, and redoing those that have not been redone. We know that those streets are in pretty tough shape. The areas that you will see, if you're watching on the map, kind of a burnt or orange colored, mustard color that we have, that's where the actual work would be done in 2026. And again, the intention here is we've got a public meeting coming up on Monday, February 3rd at the Morton Mandan Public Library, to gather some input from the public and kind of explain, here's the project that we have that we're looking at. There are, I think, 3 phases of this: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3.
Yeah, we've talked about this quite a few times, and the commission has
Right.
this on their radar, and your planning department is working on it as well.
Yeah, on the
So-
radar, and again, this is to show folks there will be some parking changes that may be significant in the residential area, and we want to gather some input on that and make sure folks kind of know here's what we're looking at. A lot of these changes are due to age of infrastructure, water lines, sewer lines, storm sewer. There are curb and gutter issues going on here, and a lot of that needs to be repaired. And also ADA requirements will require us to kind of widen some of the sidewalks, which will cause a change in parking to this area.
The map that if we could pop this new map up, it really talks about what you just mentioned about, what is going to happen in what area, and that has to do
Right.
with the colors and the shading that we see, whether it's concrete or intersection work, whatever.
Yeah, it's the intention here is to really make this a number one. We've got a dire need for the infrastructure improvements. The concrete and asphalt need repair, and water and sewer lines, but also along with that, how do we improve the streetscape? How do we make this a more walkable community? How do we provide those ADA safety mechanisms that we have to put in? And also, like I said, improve the stormwater drainage, which right now there's minimal stormwater drainage in this area, and that's why what we're showing on the map now is kind of the construction area where that may occur, but there will be a stormwater district included in this, which affects residents to the north in the drainage area, where just because you've got a inlet on the bottom end of the bucket, you have areas to the north that are contributing water into the system, and there needs to be a recognition of there may be some cost assessed to those folks too.
This project has been a long time coming.
Yes.
Another long-range road projects. It takes so much time to get through these. This project was originally proposed, I believe, to DOT as one big project.
Yep.
Now it's broken down again in 3 phases. So,
Yep, as part of, I think, Governor Burgum's Main Street initiative and how do we take care of communities' main streets, we proposed, all that work we talked about earlier, Collins Avenue, 6th Avenue, the First Street, and also the avenues up to 2nd.
yeah.
The amount that was made available was woefully short. I think that project was estimated to be $12 million. I think our grant was $2.1 million in that range, but still left $10 million on the local share to pick up, and we just did not have
Yeah.
the funding sources to pay for that. Now we have some Prairie Dog money or municipal infrastructure fund money. We've got some water and sewer utility fund money we'll be putting in here. And recently the State Department of Water Resources has grant programs for roughly 60% of the drinking water, the replacement of drinking water pipes and things like that. And also we'll be doing we need to do a survey of these folks, how many may have lead service lines running into their homes.
So a lot of work still to do, but
Right.
this meeting on February 3rd at the library, is it safe to say that your prime target are the people within this area in this district?
Yep, prime target is those
Okay.
that will be affected by streets being torn up. And we understand that we want to make sure that they're aware.
Business
Again,
people, yeah.
businesses, some of the residences going up to 2nd Street, this will affect them, and we'll need to do our best to minimize it. And then this project, again, is we're looking to get that work, shovels in the ground in the spring of 2026.
And do we anticipate in the financial structure of this that there would potentially be some special assessments on
Yep.
these
There
individual
will be.
properties?
I think the total project on phase 1 is $6.5 million. I think we've got $2 million plus change in DOT grant money.
Okay.
We also have some Department of Water Resources underground money to help lower those costs too. So we think now that it's time to move this forward because those funding sources are in place, making this more, it lessens the burden. on
Not going to
folks.
get any cheaper.
No, we haven't seen that at all, and not that things might not change. We're hearing there's some bids that I think that were awarded or let East Bismarck, that the bids came in a little bit under what the engineer's estimate were. We know that our big project, the $39-40 million east end of Memorial Highway was I think 4 to 5% over engineer's estimate.
Nice and close.
Yeah,
Yep.
that is reasonable.
Yeah.
And like I said, we hope that the bidding environment would be, status on this project is we have the public input meeting, I think on February, our second meeting in February, we'll bring it to the commission to start the creation of the assessment district, which will go for 30 days. We'll get through that process and then see how that turns out and if we can move the project forward or not.
So when would you anticipate that construction would start?
Construction, we would anticipate the spring of 2026. Again,
Okay.
these are projects been in the works for a long time. Would we like to do it tomorrow? Absolutely. We've had some significant water line breaks in this area. I think Jared may have said 36. We've been through 2 street improvement project input meetings the last couple of weeks, so I think this one, we are looking at several cast iron water lines that we need to replace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in just 2 seconds here.
Yes.
But first of all, there was a public hearing also last
Correct.
night. I don't believe that you had anyone from the public actually make comments, but this has to do with another big project
Yes.
that's starting this spring, the Heart River Women's Transformational Center. This is an addition onto the existing facility out there.
The YCC, or the Youth Correctional Center, to the west, the Women's Transformational Center is now funding was provided in the 2023-2025 session, up to $160 million. So,
It's a
it's
lot.
interesting that even our billing official, Jordan Singer, said this is a big project. We thought the high school at roughly $100 million was big, but here we have a $170 million project that is shovels in the ground probably starting in April of this year.
And this map that we have up right now, this shows the footprint
Yep.
of that piece of property. Do I understand as well that this just now is annexed into city limits?
It's kind of weird,
Okay,
admittedly so. Part of YCC had already been annexed many, many years ago into the city of Mandan, and then part to the west was still in our ETA or in Morton County's jurisdiction. But we said this doesn't make sense to have two. It's either city or county. So, North Dakota Department of Corrections brought in the annexation of the westerly portion of what you see on the map right now, so it'll all be in corporate limits.
Okay.
As we are serving it with water and sewer.
Right.
And things
Jurisdiction
like that. So it
makes
just
a
makes
lot of
sense.
sense.
So
Yeah,
last night
sure.
was to approve some plating issues to get this moving along and get this piece annexed into the city, which I think we've already done.
I have another map we can pop up, and thank you keeping it up there.
Yeah.
Shows the site plan as proposed at this point. Now, things can change, obviously, as this moves forward, but it really shows kind of the depth of this project. This is residential. This is workforce training.
Yes.
This is, a lot of components to this.
Talking about doing some childcare at this
Okay.
facility too. So I think this plan has gone through several iterations since they started looking at it many years ago. I think what they found out with the women's facility is that where it's at right now, I think, is in New England.
Oh, okay.
And they're just, these support services are just not present in order to be as effective as possible. So like I said, 23-25 legislative session approved funds to be
Yeah.
spent on this. And they're about ready to, like I said, I think they are gathering bids, and they have a construction management team on board already.
Moving forward,
And
yeah.
so I would expect that the layout you see here will be very close to what in finality this looks like, because once you start moving dirt,
Yeah.
it's tough to
Yeah.
put
Accepting
a
bids.
time out
Yeah, for
in
sure.
that project. So again, I think a couple of things that were on our agenda last night, we approved I think Mayor Freilich asked building official Singer how many jails, how many facilities like this he's worked on, and I think he had worked on the penitentiary in Bismarck during his time in Bismarck, and that's why we have contracted for some assistance on plan review and building design and things like that will be funded via the building permits that are taken out on this project.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. Can't expect staff if they haven't worked
Yeah,
on these
this
kinds of...
is, they're
In addition-
significantly different building
Yeah.
than your normal commercial building or your
Yeah.
residential home.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we'll talk, I'm sure it'll be back in front of the commission at some point, so
yeah, we
we'll
look
talk about
forward,
that.
and like I said, I think that Department of Corrections representative said that they will be asking for another $5 or $6 million this session, which would put this project again between 160 and 170 million dollars. So
Yeah,
when
big
you're thinking
investment.
about big things, it's
Yeah.
like, all right, we've got a new high school at $100 million, rough numbers. We've got
Mm-hmm.
Memorial Highway at East Half at $40 million, and now you have this project going on at $170 million.
a lot.
So there's a significant amount of
We'll have
investment.
to keep your eyes on as these projects move forward as well. So if you're just joining us, this is City Current. I'm Mary Van Sickle here at Dakota Media Access. We are recording this on Wednesday, January 22nd. It's a Mandan edition. That means Jim Neubauer, our city administrator from Mandan, is here to talk about the commission meeting last night, giving us the highlights.
Yes.
So moving into new business, a new fire engine was discussed. And
Yeah.
that is, again, just kind of boggles your mind how the cost on these.
Right. I think Fire Chief Bitts presented the replacement of an engine truck, not a, we will, by the time, what did he say? I think we ordered today. Delivery time is, today it's 2025. Delivery is 2029, so roughly 5 years out. We know
Wow.
the last engine we ordered a couple of years ago, and we are still, that was a 48-month build from the time you order to the time it's delivered. Now we're looking at a 60-month period from the time you order to the time you deliver it. So it seems okay, how can we have two engines on order at the same time? And it's like, all right, delivery is
Lead time is
significantly long.
Yeah.
And that is, Mitch said we've got issues going on with the engine that we have that will be 13 years old by the time it's replaced.
Well, I think what he said last night too, Jim, was these are not, coming off a factory line. These
No.
are all custom made. Every community has different needs
Right.
and different staff, that type of thing. So they're made to your specifications. And the cost on this one is $1.2 million.
Yep, $1.3 million. So
It's a lot.
Yeah, significant
Big
dollars.
investment.
A large investment needed and necessary.
Yeah.
We can't have a fire call and say, I'm sorry, we got a truck out of service, we can't respond. We have mutual aid agreements with Bismarck and Burley and Morton
Sure.
and everybody
Yeah,
else. So in
absolutely.
case that happens, and sometimes it does, but we want to make sure we're doing our best to prevent that from happening. These things need to be ordered well in advance. And again, I think that these, so I think the last engine we were able to order, we had half of it paid for through a diesel grant, emissions grant.
Okay.
And so I think that one was $403,000, $480,000. So a difference in price between a couple years ago until today is significant. And also, like you said, every fire department, well, you think everybody uses the same engine. They all kind of look alike.
Yeah.
But the equipment that you have in may vary by what you have in your community. And I think Commissioner Rohr asked about what might we see if there are different things added to this, and I think Chief Bitts said by the time we get to order, if we're 3 years
Right.
from now, something may change.
Sure.
You may need a compartment for blankets if you have electrical fires on electric vehicles. Something different. Technology may change, so there may be some further customization, but
What you know now.
what we know
is
now
what's
is
ordered.
what we know.
Yeah.
And what we don't know 5 years from now, usually the build time, there will be a trip that is made out to the factory where they will go through all of the specifications with representatives of the fire department.
And the other point that came out last night was there's only a few places in the country, a few businesses that build these.
They're not kicking out 25 of these a day or anything like that. These are, again, specialty equipment, specialty orders, and they take a long time.
Well, and just, we all know what's going on our West Coast in California, and being prepared is so important. So it's
and
good to see that Mandan's doing the same, trying to do their best to be prepared.
It is, and things in the world affect these prices, right? You've got how many? I think somebody said they saw 100 fire trucks lined up helping fight the California
gosh.
wildfires.
Yeah.
The wear and tear on those machines, they're going to be looking for replacements, or if the ones that may have been burned up and things like that, they need to be replaced. So getting an order in now makes sense to do that. Plus, it was also, when we talked about earlier about what are we looking at next 5 to 10 years as far as budget and planning, this is one of them that has been planned for a while. It's like, okay, now is the time to.
So there's so much anticipation when they do come in or get a ribbon cutting to go.
Oh, I think Mitch said last night that the ladder truck is 2004, so I think that is 21 years old now. I believe, can't remember if we bought that one used for about $800,000, and that machine now is about a $2 to $2.5 million truck.
Okay.
And one of the big things people say, well, how do you wear them out?
Yeah, you don't put in a huge amount of mileage.
Yep, there's not a lot of mileage in there, but they have to be ready to go. And the parts that are made for those vehicles after 20 years, they don't make these parts anymore. So that's part of it too. But our guys do a great job of maintaining and fixing everything that we can is done, either with our firefighters who have extraordinary skills in doing this, or our public works mechanics that also have extraordinary skills in fixing these types of equipment.
Sure.
So we do everything we can in-house, but there's some things that
Keep
we
'em
just
rolling.
can't do,
Yeah.
that we have to take them to the shop.
All right. Well, more on
Yeah.
that, I'm sure, once they come in.
Yeah,
There'll be an announcement,
we'll talk
hopefully.
in 2029 about the ribbon cutting on the new
You and I
fire
might
engine.
not be
We may
around
not
that
be here,
day.
but maybe we'll get invited. Who knows?
I think that would be appropriate.
There we go.
So, next on the agenda under new business was the raise grant
Yes.
application. And typically, there's not this much conversation or discussion about a department having permission to move forward on
Right.
a grant. But this is a really big project.
It's a monster.
It is.
We talk about big projects, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but again, Memorial Highway, new high school, new elementary school, water treatment plant intake,
Downtown
water treatment plant,
streets,
downtown
yeah.
streets, and now this, which is really an effort to try and take care of the core of the downtown area, all the way from like 2nd Street all the way up to Division.
Yeah, we've got a
in
map
Mandan.
on
So-
here, kind of shows the area that we're
Right.
talking about. This grant would address, and this area was chosen because it fits the grant. I
Yes.
think that came up in the discussion last night, was why this area? Because it could, if it's successful
Yes.
and you are granted the potential of $25 million to work in this area, why not allow that somewhere else? And it was because, as I understand it was explained, it fits the criteria. This grant is pretty specific on what kind of area it can be
Yep.
used on.
And I know that, kudos to Riley and Jarek for doing research and homework, and there's funding opportunities that exist today that maybe didn't exist a year or 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. So this is an opportunity that we are taking to apply for this grant. The total project cost in here, I think, is $34 million. Again, big number, but a significant area that needs attention, which would be water, sewer, streets, curb, gutter, stormwater, all those things that need attention in this area that we're going to try and tackle. And again, like you said, the application and the criteria for this grant, we think this area meets those, checks all the boxes.
Yeah.
And
It's an
our-
older area of town.
Yep.
It's got quite a bit of lead pipe in there, which you
Yep.
referred to earlier, that needs to be replaced.
Yes, and that's
It's on your radar
It's on the
already.
radar, and one of the things when we look at funding sources for this, if, again, if we are successful, and I think realistic, there's probably a 10% chance, but we're doing everything we can to increase those odds of this project being funded. We're looking at doing it in 4 different phases because it is such a large project. It's not going to be able to be constructed in one season. Just physically impossible
Sure.
to do.
Yeah, it's a big area, too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and would take care of, like we said, we're talking ADA accessibility, we're talking curbs, we're talking street that I think Commissioner Schoberg mentioned last night, and we've seen it ourselves, that there are areas where you have blacktop and you may have a layer of thin concrete on, and then you have another layer
Wow.
layer of blacktop, and there are significantly a lot of stuff has been patched over the years, and this would tear all that up stuff and put in new. So,
You were referring to the area, they were referring last night to it as Mandan proper, and I
Yes.
was a little confused, what does that exactly mean? But that is the legal description
legal
of
description,
this
it's kind
area.
of your oldest part of town,
Yeah.
your original part of Mandan
Yeah.
is this area. And again, we know that the infrastructure needs attention, and there's only so much patching we can do. I think in the late 2008 or 2009, we did an overlay on 2nd Street.
Okay.
That was with some stimulus money that the federal government provided that said, if you have projects that you can't turn over a shovel of dirt, because the idea was they want to get this money into the economy, stimulate the economy, get people working during the recession and things like that. So if you're not turning the shovel full of dirt, you can use this money, and we did several projects in town with those
okay.
funds. But in 2nd Street, I think former Commissioner Sarienko, who lived on this area, used to refer to it as chip tooth because of the different driving surfaces that were here.
Okay.
We overlaid that street with some of those funds.
Jim, is this area also topographically different too? Isn't there a grade in this area?
There is
that's
significant
fairly-
grade
yeah.
going up the hill as
Okay.
you move to the north.
Yeah.
So if you're familiar with what we always call the former junior high, it is historic
Okay.
Mandan's on 4th.
Sure.
That you have, if you're going up Collins Avenue, right, you know what grade that is.
So that creates a bit of a challenge, and I
Yes.
think that, I remember last night they were talking about that, that's another one of the criteria that can be used, is that this has been a challenging area
Yes.
to address because of that as well.
Yep, so we're very hopeful. We're looking for, we already have several letters of support from the community. We're looking to gather some more and to get those letters of support done and get that grant submitted. Time-wise, you submit the grant and you hopefully will know probably this summer, spring or summer of 2025. And then, if things would work out right, you might have a 2027 project and a 2028 project and a 2029
Okay.
and so there's significant time involved in this. And also, again, what we're looking at funding sources is if that $35 million, $35 million, 33, whatever that number is, $25 million would be covered by the grant. And then we are picking up some underground work through our water and sewer utility fund, some Department of Water Resources grant money that may be available, and also some of our municipal infrastructure or prairie dog funds that can be used. And if there are 0 special assessments on this property, your application is ranked better
Oh, wow,
than
okay.
if you special assess in this
Okay.
area. I think your ratings aren't, your chances aren't, they probably go down from you
Well-
being successful, and that's why we would look at putting significant dollars from utility funds, Department of Water Resources, and prairie dog or municipal infrastructure
And-
funds money into there.
As I understand, last night as well, was talking about the data that is required
Yeah.
with this particular one, grant application, is that the data from previous, recently completed projects and surveys are going to feed into this grant, and
Correct, and a lot of
That's
that is the economic data that we have on
Yep.
the area through the 2020 census tracts and things like that really provide again, another one of those boxes you can check that say.
there is a need,
there is a
economic need.
Economic need and
Yep.
things like that, again, hopefully your points go up.
I think I recall as well that if this was to be special assessed, we'd be looking at potentially $40,000 per property or something to that
Yeah,
effect.
I'm not sure of that
And
number. I know we just
I'm sure
did
it's a guess, but man, that would be a huge hit
yeah.
in these areas, because a lot of them are older homes. Again, your data suggests that the economics in that area are not necessarily the strongest, so it'd be a huge hit. How do you move that forward
Right.
if they protest it out? It's a dead issue again, so.
And I think we just did a public input meeting last Thursday night on what we call the Monty Drive water line replacement project. And in that scenario, without any federal, with any utility fund money or prairie dog money or Department of Water Resources money, the cost per parcel just for water line, I think, was in the neighborhood of $45,000
Oh, my
per
goodness.
lot,
That's,
which
any property owner would
yeah,
be
and then-
very disappointed, yeah.
with the additional funding that we've been able to garner for that, I think the best example would be, I think, I remember my numbers correctly, would be without the additional funding assistance, the special assessment per year would be like $4,400 per year for 15 years. We've got that down to, I think, $661 per year for 15
Significant,
years.
yeah.
So big difference, but there's still some special assessment to that project.
Well, it seems like that your staff and yourself really are aggressively looking at any kind of grant opportunities that are out there. And this is a big one, and this one
is a big one.
highly competitive.
Yes, and that's, like I say, if we were successful in this would be a great deal.
Major Yeah.
deal, and can't not stress that enough. And like I said, thanks to our engineering consultants who've done some work in here, and also to Jarek and Riley, as
Yeah.
we're continuously looking for ways to provide others funding mechanisms for these projects. And some of those one of the questions we got the other night in an input meeting was, well, why didn't we do this 5 years ago? Well, 5 years ago, these funding sources were not available.
No.
So had we done it 5 years ago,
You got to keep on this.
here's what
keep
it may have
looking at
cost.
these
So
things.
those
Yeah,
funding
for sure.
alternatives change all the time. So
Well,
we want to
ultimately-
strike with this one.
Yeah.
If we're successful, it'll be great.
and ultimately, the commission was unanimous. Yes,
Yes.
please apply, move it forward. And it sounds like it's going to move forward fairly quickly, because I think you mentioned that this summer there
Yep.
could be a response as
Yep,
early
don't remember the
as this summer.
exact timeline, but I
Yeah.
know that our goal is to, I think by the end of this month, potentially get that application in.
Nice. All right.
So, yeah.
Fingers crossed, big
Cross
time
fingers.
on that one.
Big projects, and like I said, can't stress it enough that there's a lot of things going on,
A lot of pieces to it, yeah.
a lot of pieces to this
Yeah,
puzzle.
yeah, for sure. So, ending our time together
Mm-hmm.
and your meeting last night, legislative update, a
Yep.
lot of discussion on property taxes moving forward.
Yeah, not surprising that as dominating, I think, the Capitol hallways and judicial wing and everything else about what can be done to help the local, and mainly they've been focusing your primary residents, citizens and your taxpayers like that. So several bills that we're following. Obviously, we're looking very closely at all the bills that contain caps. We fully understand why these are being proposed. We're just trying to educate our representatives on what effects these caps may have on the local governments.
I think you mentioned the 3% cap that's being
Yeah.
proposed at this point in time, and it seems like that would be somewhat of a challenge to meet that.
Very, very much so. I think that in working with our finance director, Greg, and assistant finance director, Justin, it's like, okay, if this were put in place, what would it mean for us? And so we provided some neutral comments on that just to try and educate. One of the things is we're looking at a third fire station. We know that the response times up in the northwest part of town are getting longer as we build out. And how do we fund we've got some funding coming from the half-cent
Right.
sales tax. It was
Yeah.
just passed in June, which started to be collected in January of 2025. So that is for public transportation, police and fire buildings, and vehicles. And
not
city
about
hall
staffing.
accessibility. It's not
Yeah.
about staffing at this point. So, can I build a station? Yeah, in a year or two or whatever it takes to do that. But to fully staff a fire station with 3 people 24/7 is really a 15-person. It's a 15-person addition.
Well, that's a great example, but then you've also got your existing staff.
Yes.
All the city departments, and the cost of living and wages that are addressed usually every year, not always. But how do you keep up with that? And I think the other part of the conversation is with all the groups, it seems like retention and recruitment for good people to
Right.
be working for the cities. You don't want to be scraping the bottom of the barrel. You have to be somewhat competitive in your wages and your benefits,
And that's
or you will.
That's part of when you live in Bismarck, Mandan, state capital area,
Yeah.
and you're competing with the same labor market. And it's not just city government or county government or schools or whatever. It's
Right.
everyone.
Yeah.
There's a competition for employees among everybody. We certainly, our pay scale is not that of Bismarck's. We fully understand that. But we need to remain competitive with Bismarck,
Right.
with
And
the
they
city
just-
folks, because again, that same pool of people, whether it's police officers or firemen or
Right.
firefighters or public
Maintenance
works,
workers.
it doesn't matter. You're
Yeah.
still looking at the same pool.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure you're on it, and you're spending a lot of time at the Capitol, so we don't have a lot of time left,
Right.
but I think that's
No, we'll.
the highlight
That's
that,
kind of the big highlight.
Yeah.
There are some other bills in there that a lot are dealing with primary residents and doing some definitional things in there. There's some
Sure.
other things that are in there we think are interesting to watch.
Yeah.
So as always, there's never a dull moment.
got a ways to go with that one, too.
Got a ways to go, yes.
All right. Thanks, Jim, and we'll see you in a couple
Yep,
weeks.
thanks for having us.
All right, and thank you for tuning in to this edition of City Current.
For more information on what was discussed in this episode of City Current, visit cityofmandan.com or call 701-667-3215. If you have any suggestions, comments, or issues you would like addressed in future City Current episodes, contact us at info@freetv.org. This program airs on Government Access Channel 2 and 602 in HD, or on Radio Access 102.5 FM. It's also available as a podcast on radioaccess.org and as a video viewing link at freetv.org. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of City Current.